In 2016, DC Comics' hype and popularity exploded with the release of their one-shot DC Universe Rebirth comic, which showcased the beginning stages of the company integrating characters from their Watchmen IP into proper DC Comics continuity. Many comic book fans turned their eye to DC, awaiting the next Watchmen tidbit in their weekly offerings. Unfortunately, in my opinion, they ended up squandering their iconic moment by dragging the mystery out too long without many breadcrumbs, and ultimately a lackluster payoff, with the culminating Doomsday Clock storyline suffering from heavy delays and not ending up having the sizable impact on continuity fans were hoping for. Meanwhile, Marvel Comics absolutely utilizes the IP they have in their library, such as having previously incorporated Godzilla, Transformers, Conan the Barbarian, and other such brands into their mainline continuity, and I would argue they have been met with large amounts of success with this initiative. So prior to the enormously successful premiere of DC's Absolute line of comics, I looked into the wider IP catalog they have access to through their parent Warner Brothers company library and thought it might be fun to start a series of videos detailing pitches for seamlessly integrating the brands into proper comics continuity. At that time, DC could have used another boost. Many of these brands are just sitting on a shelf collecting dust anyway, so why not? The first IP I want to focus on is The Iron Giant from the 1999 film of the same name, directed by Brad Bird. It is a loose adaptation of a novel from 1968 called The Iron Man, and, though initially crapping out at the box office, became beloved by an entire generation. It tells a story about an unlikely bond between a mechanized alien that comes to Earth during a Cold War setting and an adventurous young boy who finds and befriends him. Cold War is an era that DC has barely touched in modern comics, which is why I think integrating characters from the Iron Giant would be so easy and seamless. I, being born in 1992, am most partial to the post-crisis continuity, comics produced between 1985 and 2011, so that is what I researched for integration purposes, though I don't think comics produced beyond this period did much to flesh out the Cold War era either. In 1952, a comics company called Quality Comics began publishing an anthology war stories title called G.I. Combat, which originally focused on World War II adventures. But in 1956, Quality Comics would be sold to National Periodical Publications, which would go on to become DC Comics. And by the 1960s, many Cold War themes began making their way into the comic. Though the comics run would ultimately end in 1987 and not be touched in any major way until a brief 8-issue failed ongoing series in 2012, I think the Iron Giant's integration would work best within the pages of a G.I. Combat relaunch miniseries. If popular enough, there are definitely ways to make sequel miniseries, or even ways of making it into an ongoing instead, but more on this later. I will now read through the Wikipedia entry for the movie's plot, adding in periodic characters, concepts, and teams relating to DC Comics continuity to show just how well this integration would work. So without further ado, here is G.I. Combat, The Iron Giant. In October 1957, an army of ironclad aliens soar through space as the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. The satellite's radio signal causes one of the aliens to malfunction and deviate from its destination toward Earth. This Iron Giant crash lands on the planet, hitting its head against the coastline of Maine and winds up in the ocean before entering a forest near Rockwell while suffering from amnesia regarding its original function due to the impact of its collision. The following night, 9-year-old Hogarth Hughes investigates and discovers the Iron Giant attempting to eat the transmission lines of an electrical substation, eventually coming to befriend the confused creature. The Iron Giant later eats railroad tracks in the path of an oncoming train, causing it to collide with him and derail. Hogarth leads the damaged Iron Giant away from the area while discovering the latter's ability to self-repair. The boy shares with the giant his admiration for the exploits of Easy Company during World War II and pridefully brags that his father was briefly a member of the group. The aforementioned incidents lead paranoid U.S. government agent Kent Mansley to Rockwell. Mansley converses with Hogarth's mother, Annie, who mentions her husband having died during the Korean War and becomes convinced of the child's involvement. Hogarth evades Mansley, leading the Iron Giant to a junkyard owned by beatnik artist Dean McCoppin, who reluctantly agrees to keep him after hearing about their ordeals. Hogarth enjoys his time with the giant, but is compelled to explain the concept of death to him after they witness hunters killing a deer. The Iron Giant's memories come back to him in a dream, revealing that he originates from a planet of conquerors. He remembers having destroyed numerous worlds alongside his brethren, but upon hearing the radio signal from Sputnik 1 being drawn toward the Earth. Mansley discovers a photo of the Iron Giant and Hogarth together, so he interrogates the boy before summoning a U.S. Army contingent led by General Shannon Rogard to the scrapyard to prove the giant's existence. Dean tricks them all by pretending that the creature is simply one of his art pieces. Frustrated by the apparent false alarm, Rogard prepares to leave with his forces. Hogarth continues to have fun with the Iron Giant by playing with a toy gun, though this inadvertently activates the giant's automatic defense system, his crosshairs trained on the boy. Dean yells at him for nearly killing Hogarth, so the saddened creature runs away, with the latter giving chase. Dean realizes the Iron Giant was simply acting in self-defense and catches up to Hogarth as they follow after the giant. The Iron Giant saves two boys falling from a roof when he arrives in Rockwell, winning over the grateful townspeople. But upon seeing the giant in town, Mansley sends the army to attack the creature just as it picks up Hogarth into its enormous hands. They are forced to flee together and manage to escape due to the Iron Giant's flight system, but are ultimately shot down by the army, crashing to the ground and rendering Hogarth unconscious. Thinking Hogarth is dead, the Iron Giant gives into his automatic defensive system, transforming into a war machine in an enraged and grief-stricken state. He decimates the military in retaliation while progressing back to Rockwell, and soon the Global Guardians arrive to provide aid. The superheroes are swiftly defeated in battle, so Mansley convinces Rogard to prepare a nuclear missile launch from the USS Nautilus. Hogarth soon awakens and calms the giant in time to prevent further violence, while Dean clarifies the situation to Rogard. Rogard orders his men to stand down and prepares to order for Nautilus's primed nuke to be deactivated, but Mansley panics, impulsively ordering the missile launch in a final desperate attempt to destroy the Iron Giant. Mansley then attempts to escape the scene, but is prevented from doing so by the creature before Rogard furiously berates and arrests him. The Iron Giant bids farewell to Hogarth, determined to save Rockwell. Knowing the populace are unable to flee in time to escape the missile's blast radius, he soars directly into the missile's path, inspired by the stories of Hogarth's father's bravery, and collides with the weapon with a content smile. The giant is apparently destroyed from the resulting explosion, leaving Hogarth, Dean, Annie, and Rogard devastated. Months later, a memorial is erected for the Iron Giant in Rockwell, and Dean and Annie have started a relationship. Rogard gifts Hogarth with a package containing the only remnant of the giant found, a screw. That same night, the boy finds the screw attempting to move on its own, and upon remembering the creature's ability to self-repair, happily allows the screw to leave the house. The screw joins many other parts as they converge on the Iron Giant's head on the Langjökull Glacier in Iceland, smiling as he begins to reassemble. Well, there you have it. What did you think? Very few tweaks, changes, and shoutouts were necessary, right? That's the idea. There are many places to go with this concept. The movie only adapts roughly half of its source material. There's an entire kaiju battle pitting the name character against a creature dubbed the Space Bat Angel Dragon towards the end of the book that could be used for sequel material. The source material also has its own sequel called The Iron Woman, which could be mined for yet additional comic storylines. The eventual attempted invasion of Earth from the other members of the Giants' conquering species could maybe even serve as a final arc. As for some of the added elements, I name-dropped Easy Company in reference to Hogarth's father to add more weight to his character. It would also enable him to be featured in flashbacks and other Easy Company-related comics. he could even be retconned to be a member of the group that has already been featured at one point or another in time. I also chose to confirm that he died in the line of duty during the Korean War, as per a popular fan theory. He might even be shown to have been a member of the original, non-bomb-in-head, semi-villainous Suicide Squad under Rick Flag Sr., which we know were active participants in the war. Neither being a brief member of Easy Company, nor recruited for the initial incarnation of the Suicide Squad, preclude Mr. Hughes from spending the majority of his military career in the Air Force, as per his cinematic backstory. Another concept I added that I'd like to touch on is my inclusion of the Global Guardians. This was an international superhero team created during the Cold War, which I felt would reasonably intervene during a threat from a rampaging alien. To have them ultimately get defeated would serve to add a huge action sequence to the pitch, showcase the Iron Giant's raw, unbridled strength when cutting loose, and give more weight to Rogard's choice to launch the Nautilus's nukes. One of the biggest changes that would obviously need to be made would be references to Superman, as the character would not have even been born during the time this story takes place in most modern incarnations of him. I know many fans of the movie will find this removal blasphemous, but here's my counter. Firstly, I think it's more impactful and heart-wrenching for the Iron Giant to be spurned on to make his ultimate sacrifice due to stories of the bravery of an actual fallen mortal hero over a fictionalized comic character, as the movie portrays Superman. It's more relevant to a Cold War-era movie. There's also subtext in the movie about Hogarth and Annie really struggling over the death of their respective father and husband. The Iron Giant and Dean help to fill the void, but I feel hearkening back to Mr. Hughes at the moment of another selfless sacrifice just feels incredibly poetic. Also, the Iron Giant is a mechanoid alien, right? Shown with the ability to reassemble even when blown to pieces. Well, I think it's entirely plausible for him to survive through the years to modern times to also be featured in mainline titles such as Action Comics, where he's discovered within a top-secret military compound. Maybe after Hogarth's eventual death and his violent and destructive reaction, he becomes inconsolable and powers himself down into a supposed eternal slumber. The military might have then, unsure of how to destroy him, locked him away and thrown away the key, so to speak. Events might unfold in the mainline comics where Steve Trevor, Rick Flag, Superman, or possibly even members of Hogarth's family line locate and activate him once more, reintegrating him into the world and beseeching him to give it another chance. His classic hero worship of the Man of Steel could become an attribute of his that he obtains in this modern era. Regardless, he would then go on to join the epic pantheon of superheroes to be used in stories from then onward. So what do you think? Am I onto something here? Am I grasping at straws? I just didn't see anything else being done with him, aside from a small part of 2018's Ready Player One film, so I decided to think outside the box a bit. Tell me your opinions in the comments down below. Do you like this idea? Hate it? Do you have your own ideas? Or maybe even storylines that take from my concept and run with it? I'm eager to hear your opinions. This is a very different type of video from my previous ones, but I would say it's definitely a passion project idea. I hope it at least entertained you or got the gears moving of your own brain to come up with alternative ideas for what should be done with the IP. Future ideas for this series of videos detailing how to apply various Warner Brothers IP into proper comics continuity include Supernatural, The Zeta Project, Quest for Camelot, Scooby-Doo, Looney Tunes, Osmosis Jones, and many others. If any of these topics interest you, stay tuned. Anyway, please like and comment to help the video's engagement levels, and subscribe for more pitch content. Next up is a rewrite video of that Kraven the Hunter movie everyone hated. Let's see what I can do with that one. Now, if you click on the video that just popped up to the left, you can view my pitch detailing a proper foundation for a DC shared film universe, the most popular video on my channel by far. And click on the video that popped up below it to check out my rewrite pitch for Batman Forever. Stay gold, YouTube, and ciao for now.